I'm here.
Great. Recording starts. So the webinar today is about the outer planets, and not the usual topic for Vedic astrologers, which is why it's a little bit different. So in what I do myself is my approach to things is to take a wider perspective on subjects and try and put things to the test, and bring in some of the Western classical astrology from the Greek Hellenistic side, and try and apply it to the Vedic system and see, mash it all up and see what comes out of the other end of it, and it usually has some interesting results. So it might be a little bit against the grain, but I'm confident that other Vedic astrologers of esteem, like Dennis Harness, Dennis Flaherty, are using outer planets in their interpretation, and some of you guys might be also using it too, and you're obviously in your own rights quite well known and authentic and trained, so it's nice to have that sharing. So that's part one. I'll do intro to outer planets first of all, then I'll do myth, symbol and deity, kind of like to give you some knowledge, some tools, and then we're going to look at some example charts. I've got two in mind that I want to look at, and if you brought your own ones with you, that's fine, that's great. We can also look at those and give this thing a bit of testing. So slide number one. Can you all see the slide, please, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the reason why I put this slide on the screen is the kind of reading I've done around the outer planets is that if you kind of think the ordinary planets are kind of within the realms of your normal terrestrial material plane that influence us, but the outer planets, in terms of what I've read about them, is the idea of them is they're a bit like the X-Men, in that they are extraordinary kind of planets and don't operate on normal levels. And they also provide you the kind of like the potential to reach extraordinary heights if you understand them properly. So, like the X-Men, they're unusual and strange. They can be something you fear, but if you trust them well, there are some fruits to be gained from them and what they can show you in terms of your own guidance. So now welcome to the League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen. So on to the next slide. Welcome, Robert. Nice to join us. Thank you. Let's talk about what these planets represent. The outer planets represent gifts, abilities and faculties that we call extraordinary, which are the next step forward in our evolution. They're like higher octave planets. They're taking the other planets to a higher level. So each one of these outer planets has a relationship to a ordinary planet within the system of seven, but it's actually a higher octave of it. So Uranus, first of all, is seen as the higher octave of Mercury. And Mercury, in normal sense, is a planet about intellect and knowledge and information and absorbing information from various sources. But Uranus here, as the higher octave, is the type of knowledge which is actually the hermetic knowledge from the spiritual mind, which is accessed by direct perception. And often this is not by reading books or, going through manuals and manuals of various ancient scriptures, blah, blah, blah. This is something that appears to you as insight, like a flash, all of a sudden. A bit like how scientists have discoveries, how they see things happen, how you yourself, when you're looking at someone's chart and suddenly flash of insight appears and it all gets illuminated. It's a very shocking kind of behavior, kind of energy, comes out of the blue, you don't expect it, but it comes without manipulation, okay? So it's not a planet which is kind of like, you can't really grab hold of it and try and control it. This is a spiritual experience. There's a spiritual experience which is done without manipulation. So also known as the planet of astrology and other occult or divinatory sciences. Neptune, the higher octave of Venus, and Neptune rules divine love, charity and compassion, and the urge to unite with God or a higher power. So we look at Venus as a planet which wants you to unite with another person and connect with them in that relationship, the love relationship. This is the divine side of it, where this is about connecting you to the divinity and the higher powers. Neptune awakens cosmic consciousness, intuition, and psychic sensitivity. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, whereas Mars rules personal power and drive, your personal will. Pluto is that higher personal will, which is about the personal will, which is transpersonal, and which is about transforming not only yourself, but also society as a result of it. So worldwide, the way you change affects the way others change happens also. And various other gifts of it include the kind of powerful bioenergy awareness and healing, awareness of your sexual forces and healing, and transmutation of your spiritual energy. A little underlying note here is the gift of outer planets must be cultivated and realized through spiritual effort and discipline, not something which are accessed easily in terms of channeling them through. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to talk about the actual planets one at a time. I'm going to go through Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, just as we step through them. This is going to be quite interesting. So just check you're all hearing me okay, there's no problem so far. Are there any initial questions? Any initial questions? Are you all okay? And the pace is all right, I hope. Bettina, is that okay for you?
Yes.
You hearing this all right? Bettina?
Yes.
And Robert, are you okay there? I like having this human connection with people, you see. We've got webinars, you can't see your students. So, I shall roll forward. Uranus, the first of these planets. So, this one. Uranus, by the way, look at the science research. Uranus is rather odd because it is a planet which is actually flipped on its side. It's been knocked sideways as such, and as a result, it spins in a very different axis to the other planets. Uranus is known to be ruler of Aquarius, and it's a co-ruler with Saturn and Uranus. Hey Rob, good to see you, buddy. It's a co-ruler of Aquarius along with Saturn. Now, if you think about this, if I compare it to Saturn, Uranus challenges the established structure and routine in life. So where it is influencing the chart, it brings an energy of change with it. And the person who is experiencing this, if they can go with the energy, they're going to be into a new experience and an adventure, really, and it'll take them on that journey. But if they're not into that, they'll find it as being disruptive and a real pain. This is about going with the flow with Uranus. It's going to bring sudden change along, and you're not necessarily going to like it. But if you go with it, it will take you on a new journey of expansion. Now, Saturn's order is about Saturn is all about order and keeping things under control and locked down and structured, blah blah blah. But Uranus is the opposite, and it is the reverse of Saturn. It is a planet of revolution, and therefore freedom is about breaking boundaries and barriers, and the opposite of what Saturn's all about. When Uranus is strongly placed in the chart, and I'll give some suggestions here, occupying the rising sign or closely associated with the key planet, any particular planet, then you've got to get used to change and suffering in that area of your life, whatever that is. And if other factors in the chart support the quality of Uranus, you might find the person is always fresh and lively, have an exciting life, but they could be quite unreliable and unpredictable. So maybe when I'm sort of saying this to you, that you could think about your own chart. Where is Uranus in your own chart? Where is it placed? And is it kind of having that influence? When we come to the end of this sort of session, we have an interactive stage. We'll talk about what you've found yourself. So that's Uranus there in its meanings. Uranus symbolism. I would always tend to talk about symbolism in any session I do. This is a great way to learn visually and quickly through intuition. Two symbols for Uranus provided here. I'm quite fascinated when I found the one that was the old version. Version 1 on the top right hand side and version 2 on the bottom right hand side. Version 1, you see here the kind of the cross of matter here. It's really showing that there's a kind of a left and right side of perception with Uranus, and there's a kind of connecting point in the middle, and it's connected downwards. It's a very complex glyph compared to the ones we've seen so far, and it's just trying to show the kind of multi-dimensional left brain, right brain thing going on that we experience as flashes, and then they kind of like come down the channel. So the central line there is like your sort of like your spinal point, where you can collect information from your left and right channels. This is your, in the kind of esoteric sense, your solar and lunar channels. This is not unlike a radio television antenna that brings in signals from afar and brings in new ideas to us. Question 2, at the bottom right-hand side, is a fascinating one I saw really. It looks like the Mars symbol, and here the energy, Mars energy, is directed upwards, and you've also got a point in the middle. And that dot in the middle is much like the sun here, and you can imagine it as being like the sun and Mars working together, this particular glyph, and you have a kind of a vitality and spirituality connected together towards ideals in a spontaneous manner. So it's very interesting, given that there's a Sun-Mars combustion at the moment. This is an energy taking place as we can speak. Energies are going up, about going towards superconscious ideals, and there's an important need for grounding here, so invention and change takes place in a practical way. Okay, so it's quite an interesting one there. The deity of Uranus is, I've been looking into PRAJAPATI was what was written on Dennis's article, but I really wanted to take this in a slightly different way. I wanted to explore it via, because PRAJAPATI is the deity of the creation in the Vedic pantheon. But actually, the first PRAJAPATI is called Daksha. I'll write the name of this chap down, and this is where the story actually comes. So I'm going to just go into storyteller mode. And while I go through this, so either you can look at the screen and it might confuse you, but if you can hear what I'm saying with my voice as I talk through the story, then maybe we can try and interpret the story in relationship to Uranus. This is kind of a planet which PRAJAPATI is meant to indicate, but I think it's really most signified by looking at Daksha as a deity. So PRAJAPATI is the lord of progeny and creativity, and he's the creator, the first creator of life on Earth, and he creates everything that you see. One of his daughters, named Sati, Sati is the name, wanted a love marriage to marry Shiva, who is the powerful god of creation and destruction and so on. But PRAJAPATI doesn't like Shiva, because Shiva is a wandering yogi who lives in the forest, and his best friends are ghosts and goblins, and he wears rags, and he is basically living as an ascetic. So PRAJAPATI has this kind of pride that he doesn't want to marry someone like that, so he forbids it. She disobeys him and does that anyway. So she goes and does it, and she does that. PRAJAPATI Daksha does not like this, and he insults her again, calling him an ascetic and various other names, and then he separates himself from his daughter. He then decides to set up an event to humiliate Shiva by making a statue of his body and having everyone humiliate him. And not knowing this, his daughter actually attended the event, Sati comes to attend the event. She can't bear to see the insults of Shiva taking place, so she, in a quite extreme way, decides to leave her body and commit suicide, which is quite very extreme. So she leaves her body, and as a result of this, and Shiva hears about this and has immense grief, and becomes angry enough to want to destroy the entire creation. So he comes to this event and decides to start destroying everything, and everyone gets destroyed. It's a huge form of Shiva that's extremely destructive. Obviously, this is all allegory, so don't panic. A war began, much destruction. It was the end of the world. But Daksha decided that he really didn't want the world to end, so he got an opportunity to get his life restored again, however, to have a head of a goat at the same time to pay for his sins, and he became then a great devotee of Shiva. Sati was reborn again and comes back as because she's the goddess in form, she is reborn again as Parvati, which is Shiva's consort and wife, and they're never again parted after that point. They're actually unified. And she changed her body, obviously, once in order to do this, so she's reincarnated into his body back again. So that's the story of Daksha PRAJAPATI. Sorry, it's a little longer than I expected, but I wonder if you've got any comments on this, and maybe anything relating this to Uranus as a planet, in terms of some of the sort of things that are around revolution, not doing what you're told, the result of not doing what you're told, rebellion, all the kind of opposite of Saturn type things, order and disorder, and kind of the result of that. Any comments you might have? You can speak aloud. Oh, yeah. Just you can pronounce it as PRAJAPATI, I would say, Chrissy. You can pronounce it like that. That's how I would say it, PRAJAPATI. Go ahead.
Who?
Hi.
Is Veda going to talk?
You're all welcome. You're all actually on microphone, so you can go ahead. Who'd like to speak first? Maybe you can say so on the main chat window there, and I can elect someone.
Okay, well, this is Angela, so I'll just go ahead and talk. And I apologize, my head is very full of congestion right now, so I can't really hear my. Okay, I can't tell how loud I am.
Do your best. No problem.
So one of the things that this reminded me of is I have a tendency to correspond this stuff to the Kabbalistic tree because that's my focal point of study for years. And Uranus actually sits in the Sephra of Dot, which is people refer to as sort of the unseen Sephra. And it's a place where we connect out to cosmic consciousness. It's where our throat is, and it has a lot to do with gaining control over, basically controlling ourselves, you know, looking deep within, becoming highly aware and conscious in our everyday experiences, and basically being in control of our own lives. And it's also, hearing the story of this reminds me of moving beyond ego and really connecting into the higher level of Buddhic, or some would call Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
And so really the release of the personal ego to sort of reach out to a larger, wider audience, because PRAJAPATI became devoted to Shiva, so he became more dedicated to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's just what I was thinking after hearing the story.
Good. Yeah. Okay. That's
interesting.
Good. Does anyone else like to add anything to this?
Yes, I'd like to. I don't have much of a voice, but I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
I have, Angela has caught what I have somehow through the computer. I don't know.
Oh yeah, virus.
But anyway, in the tropical astrology, which is what I study.
Excellent, we've got a tropical person there. Fantastic.
Okay. Uranus, which is Aquarius, is correct. Under their qualities, I want to address some of their qualities. And their qualities would be very determined, perspective, and very, very clever. These are people that are great communicators, and they're compatible, and would be Aries, Libra, Gemini, and Sagittarius. Again, Gemini being a great communicator. Their best work ethics, the best place for them to find employment would actually be in science and technology, because these people, Uranus people, are great thinkers. They never shut their brains down. They're constantly thinking about the what ifs and what can I do to precipitate the what ifs. They're great people for space projects and NASA. You find a lot of yeah, you do. You actually find a lot of Aquarius, or Uranuses, which was Aquarius, working in the NASA field and in the astrology fields and things. They're really great about that. That's my input.
That's really interesting. No, that's really interesting. Thank you. What I've done is I've just had some background noise. I've put everyone else on mute at the moment. So what I need you to do is, if you want to say something, or you want to tell me on the chat window there that you want to say something, or even during the presentation, I don't mind at all, write it in the chat window there. It's much more flowing then. And if you want to come on the mic, I'll then unmute you. That way we keep the sound clear. Does that sound okay? Thank you, Chrissy. That's great.
Thank you.
Does anyone want else to say something else about that topic while I go into Neptune? just please write on the message window there, and I'll bring you in. That was fantastic, Chrissy. I like that very much. In this modern age, you need to think about science, technology, and how it's indicated and what planets are indicated, so things are up to date as much as they can be. So I will now roll into. Okay, you put you all back on mute, and now we're just in chat mode only now. Let's go into the next one. Okay, Neptune. Now Neptune is a planet of dreams and fantasies. And Neptune is known to be a co-ruler of Pisces, which is just about right. And imagination, it just sort of indicates that imagination is an essential part of creativity. And if Neptune is connected to a strong and positive Venus, Neptune can make one an artist. Remember earlier on, we talked about the higher octaves. I talked about, if I go back to my first slide, Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So in terms of art and creativity, the higher end of it is the spiritual creativity. You know, the kind of when people do like divine art, the stuff you see on the, in various temples, the stuff you see in astrologers, like, start channeling all these amazing bits of art form that come through. So on the positive side of it, that's the kind of what's available. It's an immense imagination and universal imagination that's kind of access to the world of Pisces. On the negative side of it, these dreams can be illusions, and one can become a bit too dreamy, and you can get into deception and deceit by creating kind of like false representation and confusion and doubt, and which could be self-created. And one can go too far into the kind of imagination world and become quite unpractical, and then one can have problems from that. So the idealism is a big part of it, but it also can make one extremely sensitive and vulnerable too. Neptune is a symbol. It's one symbol. There here's 3 arrows pointing upwards. The kind of indication of the symbol here is that it's about turning attention towards higher consciousness in order to bring it down to material reality. So it's indicated that this is about the idealism we see in superheroes and myths. Remember when we were young and we'd watch, various superheroes. Our generation, all our generations, think about us in this group together today. We're of a particular generation where Neptune would have been in a few different houses, but not too far apart. Yes, it's the same as a Poseidon's instrument, a weapon, and Shiva's trident. That's right, Angela. It looks like Shiva's trident, actually. And this, kind of when we were young, we would idolize people, would idolize superheroes of the serials we used to watch. You'd see things like Superman and Spider-Man and all these kind of like cartoons that come on TV. I remember it very vividly. And we also want to be like them, when we're called. We try to kind of imitate that. So yeah, a part of us is superhuman. Yeah, we have a superhuman part to ourselves. There's a need to also be realistic about it. And if it's disappointed in some way, then that can sometimes make us, sometimes disillusioned or disappointed. And that can result into us trying to have escapist tendencies. This whole thing with Neptune around self-denial and getting into addiction and drugs and stuff, because you're trying to block off the fact that you couldn't make your dreams come true. So the kind of truth of it is, again, it's going back to the thing I said earlier on about the maturity of handling these energies, that with the spiritual approach to life, we're in a much better way to sort of bring up this occult force of Neptune and the outer planets, so we can make them effective parts of what we're trying to achieve. Put a link here for where I'm getting the glyph information from. I think, looking at the glyph yourself, you can see maybe what it means to you as individuals also. Now, going into the deities of Neptune, if you're a Western astrologer, you might know a bit about Poseidon. If you do know a bit about Poseidon, I wouldn't mind if maybe we just write in chat window that you do, and I might bring you into microphone afterwards, so maybe you could talk about Poseidon. I'm going to talk about Varuna, which is the Vedic deity. The Vedic deity, Varuna, is the god of the sky, of water, and the celestial ocean, and the god of law and morality, and of the underworld. He rides on the Makara, which is the crocodile, which also is the constellation Capricorn symbol. In Hindu mythology, Varuna continues to be the god of all forms of water elements. particularly the oceans. So all the water form and species are, related to Varun's energy. In terms of keywords for Varun, he's known as the Great Equalizer. He carries a noose, and he warns us about life and death that are under the purview of God. And we need to respect that and also act ethically while we're on Earth. So this thing about being ethical is very important. And what happens is in Varuna's stories is that he tends to punish people who don't tell the truth and who don't honour contracts. So he's got a big high rider on I think this thing about dreaminess and imagination and so on is that we always try and make sure that we have an ethical conduct in what we do, and we present ourselves accurately and factually, rather than creating an illusion around what we achieve. This reminds me a bit of Rahu, actually, the way Rahu behaves. Okay, anyone comment on Poseidon, who knows a bit about Poseidon? And if not, I'll just move on to Pluto, because then there's some very useful stuff coming towards the end of this presentation about the impact of these planets. Bad temper, yes, Poseidon's an angry person. Someone wants to come on the microphone, just please say so. Fab, Chrissy's got something. I'll bring Chrissy in. One moment. Okay, Chrissy, you're live.
Oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Poseidon is one of the gods that I actually worship because I worship in the Greek deities. Did you also know that Poseidon not only was a Greek god, but he was a Greek god of the seas, the oceans, earthquake, and also horses? That's why I'm drawn to him.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you understand or know about the mythology of how Poseidon got to rule the oceans. Do you or don't you?
No, not at all. I'm entirely new to the Greek pantheon of myth, so I'd love to hear your story.
Okay. They actually, this is where we get the terminology drawing straws. Did you ever hear that? If anyone has ever heard drawing straws?
New to me. Well, drawing straws is a term I've heard of. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, they drew straws. Zeus was the father. He was the king of the Olympians. He was the god of all gods there. He decided to have everybody draw straws. Whoever got the shortest straw ruled the underworld. So, of course, Hades drew the straw to rule the underworld. He did not want that position, however.
Right.
Then Poseidon, he drew the next shortest straw, and he ruled the ocean. But Zeus always kept a firm hand on Poseidon, because Zeus also rules the oceans as well. I don't know if you're aware of that. Zeus has two rules. He rules Mount Olympus, and he rules all the gods and goddesses, and he also helps rule the seas. He oversees the seas from Poseidon because he doesn't quite trust him.
I see, yeah.
So, that's pretty much my stand on him. Of course, he's associated with the trident, which is the trident of power.
I'll bring this back, get that image back, if you will, which is that image there, which is the symbol of Neptune. This glyph there, this is a trident.
Right.
Any particular behavioural characteristics aside in that things that are well known about him?
Poseidon does rule earthquakes, and it does rule tsunamis, which would be a part of the ocean. When angered at sea, he will sink ships. He will create tsunamis. He will create earthquakes, which trigger the tsunamis. He triggers hurricanes. He's in charge of that. So yes, he does have quite a very short temper, as I should say. He actually did not want to rule the seas either. He wanted to be the god of all Greek gods. I mean, he wanted to be top dog. He did not get that position either. So because he was so angered about not being chastised and thrown out of that, he wreaks his emotions and his power and his shortcomings into the seas. That's why we see a lot of storms pop up. We see hurricanes. Now we're seeing it even in New York. we're seeing the hurricanes hitting New York, which is very unusual, very, very unusual. So yeah, he absolutely seeks his wrath on the people of the ocean. He's a very powerful god.
Okay, yes. Okay, well, I think with Neptune, Poseidon is something to obviously be aware of too in terms of the characteristics there. I mean, with water, I think it was with water as a kind of a force. In signs.
Yeah. But we also know that water is a fluid motion, that it can take on any form, hold up any form that displaces its own weight in that water. We also know that about 85% of our bodies are made out of water. Without water, we can't survive. So there is a very balanced effect here for the most part.
You kind of think about tidal waves, don't you? Things like that, how powerful they are compared to, you know, you see things like damage done by fire and damage done by wind and air, but this is nothing wind compared to water, which can do the most damage in a way. And in a way, yeah, Neptune, you sort of think it rules Pisces. It's got this water nature to it, and in a way, as individuals, this is this kind of like potential higher level of Venus. Do we either get into the kind of like bringing down to reality, the higher consciousness, or do we get into the kind of our own water too much? So we get deep into our own water and get lost in our own selves and our own feelings. This is the kind of way it can go. Just Angela mentioning earlier, just tsunami. Yeah, I remember the video very clearly about what happened there, what it was like. It was true devastation. So let me move on to Pluto, and I think we're very keen to look at this chart with you, and some stuff also around dysfunctional family and also how that affects these outer planets and how they can be activated. Let's quickly go into Pluto. Let me whiz through Pluto, and then we'll go into some of the other stuff, theory stuff. Okay, Pluto is ruler of Scorpio alongside Mars. Energy is given to similar to the Hindu god Shiva, I mentioned earlier on, and the deity given as Yama, we'll discuss shortly. Pluto has a quality of complete destruction, but like Shiva, this is a necessary destruction for the next cycle to begin. And although this is quite a very